Hello, everyone. It's Tom here. I'm with Bobby.
You.
We are the Noise Brigade, and man, it's December already.
Yeah,
You
it's
believe that?
December ween.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, we are in the last month of 2021, and the ideas that we've thrown out for just different episodes all year long, we are kind of planning a end of the year wrap up super show type thing. So that'll probably be one of our last episodes of this year. We're working on that, aren't we?
Yeah, we're working on it. We're trying to get some special guests. I've been in contact with Ryan Reynolds' people, and by in contact with them, I mean I've been emailing and getting no response because they don't know who the hell I am.
Okay, I try the same thing, but I just keep getting blocked. So
I was thinking about sending a dick pic, maybe that would get their attention, but also I don't want to end up on a registry.
Yeah, no. You don't want to be a red dot on a map. So
Yeah, so I'm probably not gonna do that.
nah, yeah, not good.
But no, we're gonna have some even better guests. We're gonna
Yeah,
try and get. I mean, obviously, maybe we should probably ask them before we go throwing them under the bus. But it'd be cool to get our previous guests, so Brock and Richie and AJ, and I'd like to finally get Kara on since you know I've been teasing that since the very first episode. It's kind of like a running joke at this point. Oh yeah, next episode it's gonna be Kara.
yeah. Since she's kind of one that pushed you to do this, and
Yeah,
then you're like, I'm gonna quit, and I'm like, no, you better not.
yeah. You guys just bullied me into doing a podcast.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll try to get some of our previous guests back on to wrap this year up. And we may not be able to get everybody, but maybe we can at least maybe get a message or something because we can learn how to splice things together for a change or something.
Yeah, we can actually put some work into it. Maybe we'll even have a theme song.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, I think so far the only editing I know that I've done is I've trimmed a couple seconds off some of this stuff whenever I'm recording and I send it to you. So we're real professional here.
Yes,
Uh,
dude, totally. I know I edited something like early on, but I don't remember what it was. Hey, all I can say is at least at this point we've got it where our our like back and forth is actually syncing up, like the timing is correct.
oh, I forgot
Not
all about
using
that.
Yes, we're not using the Anchor app anymore.
Yes.
Which hey, Anchor's great, but man, I feel like once we got over half an hour's worth of material, it started like desyncing. And so like we would be talking over each other at points when we were actually like timed out and responding to each other. Um
Yeah, I forgot
so
about that. That was good.
yeah, super professional stuff. But yeah, we're using Zoom now. And we're using you what is yours? Your Google Hangouts, I
I'm
think.
using Google Meet whenever we do more than one. And it sounds pretty good. We're not we're look, we don't have thousands and thousands of listeners with ad revenue here. We're using what our tools at our disposal. So, but I
Wait,
will say,
we don't have thousands of listeners?
mm, well, unless you're holding some information from me.
I thought maybe you were holding information from me.
No.
Well, son of a.
No. Yeah, no. But the this episode though, man, this was cool, and we've both look, we've talked about this to no end. We're both huge sports fans. I'm probably the bigger baseball fan than you are, but we're both huge Phillies fans. I mean, that's just
Right.
look, Phillies, and then going Philly sports all the way around. We've done episodes on that, talking about different things about who we liked, who we didn't like, who's a zero, just different things. Heck, we even talked uniforms. I mean, so we got in pretty deep with this stuff over the last few months. Baseball's kind of at a funny point right now, though. And before we dive into what we really wanted to talk about, today at 12:01 Eastern Time, the current collective bargaining agreement had expired. And so we have the first work stoppage since 1995, so 26 years. And you remember the 94 strike shortened season, right?
Yeah, the '94 season ended. I mean, mercifully for the Phillies because they were getting their brains beat in after going to the World Series in '93. You know, the clock struck midnight on the Cinderella Phillies, and dude, they were getting their butts kicked. And if I remember correctly, I think Montreal was actually leading the East at that point, weren't they?
Yeah, we're. Yep, that's exactly what I've recalled too. And I think that season stopped in August.
Did it even get
Um,
that far? I thought it was June or July. Um,
it may. I know it was. Well, I'll tell you what. You're right. The Expos were leading the division. They were 74-40, so they got into 114 games at that point.
oh yeah, August 11th.
Yeah, so it wasn't August. The Phillies, you're right, were floundering so badly that granted the record wasn't terrible for a Phillies team. They were only 7 games under 500, which isn't awful. I mean, think about it prospectively, really.
Yeah,
It's not. I mean, we've had some really bad teams.
yeah, you're not wrong.
But the problem for them was that they were 20 and a half games out of first place. So, yeah, nothing was going to happen for them.
Right. Yeah, that was just it was ridiculous.
Yeah. So they were kind of a middle of the road um, team ish. Kind of, obviously under 500, but kind of, hovering around that mark. And so that season was shortened. And then fast forward to the 95 year, the 95 season, they finally resolve that, but they don't resolve it until March the 28th. So you're basically past spring training. So what happens then is we have another shortened season. The Phillies were kind of at the same point. They're kind of hovering around 500. And nothing goes really their way then. But so where we're at now, this is the first work stoppage due to that collective bargaining agreement expiring today. And I don't know about you, but from what I gathered, at least as far as today sounded, there was nothing close to a compromise. Everything was kind of deadlocked prior to the stoppage. The only thing I can say is if there's any saving grace, after this is done after the season concluded, so unlike 94 where it just stopped in its tracks, and right now we are sitting 3 months basically prior to pitchers and catchers reporting for the 2022 season. So if I'm seeing this with any positive light here, it's early, right?
Right.
So that's what I'm at. But the one thing I got to thinking about, and I was kind of doing a little digging. Do you remember the replacement players from 95?
Oh God, they did, didn't they?
Uh-huh. So I got to thinking
Yeah.
about that. I was like, if this goes long enough, do we get that again?
I'd like to think that they learned their lesson. I really would like to think that they learned their lesson, but but let's be honest here. Let's look at how oh I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it mean, like in a mean way, but let's look at how petty these owners and everything are. Did you see where all of the players' portraits were removed and changed into the shadow guy?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, if you go to the different websites for the different teams, when you look at their roster, instead of having their actual pictures there, it's got like the black shadow guy instead, like the generic like placeholder image.
Yeah, the one where it's like they missed picture day that year,
Right.
that day for the yearbook. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how petty we've gotten. It changed at midnight.
Wow. And it's funny too. And as we record this right now, I just went to Phillies.com and you have the 3 main articles. You ready for this? And
Sure.
I say this main articles meaning front and center. This is what you see first. You have Rob Manfred's letter to baseball fans, which I think is on every team's page.
Yeah.
The commissioner of baseball. But then you have Jim Bunning's perfect game and Phillies pitcher Rick Wise homering twice and throwing a no-hitter.
Good God.
So
Come
yeah,
on.
they're really kind of hiding some stuff here.
Yeah, let's come on. Baseball, really? Let's do better,
Uh,
please.
and here, here's the funny thing: if you actually click into the roster as you suggested, every single picture is just not there.
We'll call it
So
Nightman for
yeah, exactly. They're all Nightman. Yeah, they should have changed their name to all the same thing too.
they should have.
Yeah. Uh,
John
uh,
Smith.
yeah. Hey, you know what? Anything at this point. That's I don't know. To me, look, this is one of those things that um, I hope it doesn't go very long. It's just because I don't want to see a shortened season. Because look, quite frankly, 2020 was terrible. That 60 game shortened, whatever the heck that was.
Yeah.
Granted, yeah, it was cool to see baseball, but that wasn't really that exciting.
No.
This past season, look, we got a nice full season. We had fans back in the seats. Look, I'm good to go. That's awesome. Let's keep that going. I do not want to get this to be where it's like, end of February, into March, then we're chopping off games. We're entertaining some weird ideas. Because that's part of negotiations. I get it. Maybe we're going to have a universal DH all around and we're going to have these different things. This isn't necessarily the episode for that, but there is one thing though that we are going to talk about, that this was huge. That this hit, what was this, 2 days ago?
Yeah, 2 days ago. Yeah, I was at work when I sent you the article.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna read a little story here first, and this will kind of lead us into, and again, this kind of wraps back around part with what their negotiations are really, or could, now that this is hit. But I'm gonna read a little story first, and before we get into the meat of this is super interesting to me. So Sean Doolittle, who is a pitcher, a baseball pitcher, he actually had some kind of interesting words on Joey Votto, who had a 7-game home run streak during the 2021 season. And I say Sean Doolittle along with some advanced metrics here, although we won't get too deep in the lingo there because some of that loses me even. So I kind of cut this down to where we can all understand it. So the first home run that Joey Votto hit started a streak, was an opposite field home run in Cincinnati that carried out to straightaway left field. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing what Sean Doolittle said. And he described it as a weak fly ball, and the one that shouldn't have never have made it over the wall. But basically, thanks to some publicly available data, whatever, all this, stuff that's out there now, because they have these really advanced analytics and metrics that are, out there now, with talking about the exit velocity and the trajectory of the ball and all that. Basically, Sean Doolittle said, "Hey, weak fly ball." They did all the analytics on it, and and they kind of do this now. Like you know how this is watching the game. They run all these like Amazon, crazy, things that are like promoted that for these analytics for these different things, that home runs or these different pitches that are thrown, whatever.
Right.
But the ball that he hits only has an 8% chance of becoming a home run. So to me, it's interesting in the sense of, he said it was weak, but yet even with all the advanced metrics, it says, okay, it's an 8% chance. My big take on that is, look, 8% is still a chance, right?
Right.
Okay. So, very limited chance that he hits it. So then fast forward 6 more games of home runs. Joey Votto finally hits this crazy 110-mile-an-hour blast, exit velocity, with a 24-degree launch angle that by the numbers had a 92% chance of being a home run. And guess what? It hits the wall for a single and basically ends his streak. Again, it's kind of number thing here. 92% chance of being a home run, but also 8% chance of not being a home run. So by the numbers, still kind of works out. But the crazy thing was, Votto at the time was like, hey, that's just baseball. And then this is where it gets really interesting. So according to independent research, and this was done by the Business Insider and confirmed by Major League Baseball themselves, the possible explanation to his streak. And the stuff that Sean Doolittle picked up on was it's not baseball, it's baseballs, plural. So the article you sent me, what does that mean? It's baseballs.
So it's funny that it's actually a scientist by the name of Meredith Wills. She's a Society for American Baseball Research award-winning astrophysicist. So we're getting astrophysicists involved in baseball at this point. Major League Baseball used two different types of baseballs this year. And so we've, as fans, we've gotten used to, we're like, oh, well, it's a live ball year, it's a dead ball year. We've seen this. The baseballs are a little bit more juiced this year. And it's kind of like an open secret almost. But what you're seeing, and with the inconsistency, is this year they're using two different types of baseballs in the same season. And it makes you question, well, okay, so how did they determine who got what kind of balls? And there's some different situations that happen where you look at, well, okay, so like a marquee matchup where you have like two big market teams, like say the Yankees and the Phillies were playing, and you've got mashers on both sides of the teams there. You got Giancarlo Stanton, you've got I can't remember the rest of the friggin' Yankees. I hate them so much. You got Harper, you got Hoskins, you got players that can, JT Realmuto, you got people who can mash the ball, right? So let's see, if we're putting these games on in prime time, what do people want to see when they tune into baseball games? Home runs. It's like that old commercial, that old commercial they used to have, chicks dig the long ball. And yeah, people tune in to see. That's why there's a home run derby. It's not a bunt derby, it's a home run derby, because that's what brings in viewers. So if we've got a national matchup with two huge market teams, yeah, maybe Major League Baseball is throwing out some juiced baseballs to them. And then, you've got some teams where maybe it's something, just a regular game. We'll throw them the balls that aren't going to fly out of the yard. So you got to wonder, how much did Major League Baseball use the different kinds of balls to their advantage, or to try and, light things up or keep things down?
Yeah. And this was interesting. So these two different weighted baseballs, and you mentioned Meredith Wills, who's the very highly decorated astrophysicist. And this is really interesting that there's one story, kind of anecdotally, where one unknown, I don't know who this was, National League pitcher, became aware of her findings, her being Meredith Wills. And this pitcher was so intrigued that he tried to replicate them himself, taking baseballs that he brought home. And this was just done after the season had concluded, the 2021 season, that is. And so Wills actually instructed him how to take a kitchen scale, mix like basically half a dozen of these baseballs, take a pocket knife, remove the cover, basically record the codes that are printed on the inside of the ball, which is interesting in and of itself. If you really think about it. And then basically look at the center weight and weigh it. And he was told, the pitcher, by Meredith Wills, that the weights of the balls should fall between two different ranges, 124 to 125 grams and around 127 grams. So the pitcher, he sends Wills these pictures, and then who he subsequently was shared with the Business Insider, who's the one that kind of broke this story. There were four balls with centers weighing within a tenth of a gram of 127 grams, so or around 127 grams, as Will suggested, and then two between 124 and 125 grams, which was exactly what Will said. So, and all the pitcher was just like weird, so it really didn't have much of a response. But you made mention of this, you know, the balls that were necessarily kind of fed to nationally televised marquee matchups. Like you mentioned Yankees Phillies, like let's say ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Two teams like that, especially with someone like a Harper on the Phillies and a Stanton or whoever is mashing home runs for the Yankees, they don't want a 1-0 or 2-1 game, do they?
Hell no.
So you have these codes on the inside of these baseballs. They have a pretty darn good idea of where these things are going, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure that they have batch numbers and stuff like that. When it comes to shipping and when it comes to an organization as big as Major League Baseball, they're going to know what's going where. Let's not fool ourselves. You know,
Exactly.
they are well aware of what teams are getting what baseballs, what percentage of, your larger markets are getting them. And if you want to get to a really granular and really, and I almost want to say conspiracy theory kind of level to it, but honestly, I'm more willing to believe this than many other things. Uh, you're looking at a free agent class that's mostly made up of mashers this year and hitters and dudes that are just launching the ball. So if the Major League Baseball owners want to regulate what they're paying out, and they don't have a salary cap, they have the luxury tax threshold and all that stuff. But how are we okay? So you went out, this is your free agency year, and you had a career low in home runs. Well, we're not going to pay you as much as you were going to make if you would have gone out and crushed it. So how much did that kind of stuff, what role did that play?
Yeah, because there is quite a bit different. You're in your free agency year, you hit 28 home runs compared to hitting like 42.
Right.
And you're known to hit, 35 plus. You're going to lose a few $1 million on your contract, just the way it is.
Right.
There's no rebound type stuff in that kind of thing. They will always, if you're holding out for the last year of your contract, generally speaking, yeah, they will look at your track record. But that last year, that's why they call it a contract year. It's the whole point. They look at your numbers that year to say, hey, are you worth the extra few $1 million? And yeah, if you're cutting down on your stats that way, oof, that's that's possibly willful manipulation on their part.
Right. And that, to me, circling back to what we led off with, if that's not a huge, huge point in the negotiations of this new CBA, I would be very surprised.
Yep. No,
Because
exactly.
that is
No,
absolutely
you're exactly
manipulating the
right.
market. And it's, you're
Yep.
pushing your players, they're going to, each side is going to try and get as much as they can from the other. That's how these negotiations work. And that, and I know that. And the players, who knows what they're, I don't really know what they're looking at. Obviously, probably more of the revenue sharing, obviously more favorable outcomes as far as team controlled years after the rookie year and all that stuff. But I would have to imagine that in addition to the DH rule, whichever way the players feel, which honestly I couldn't tell you. I know that I would prefer them to keep the DH out of the National League, but I feel like it's just, it's time, it's going to happen that we're getting it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not negotiating some kind of inspection of batches of baseballs and everything, they're crazy.
Yeah. Oh no, you're and here's the crazy thing. So let's kind of let's back up to MLB's immediately reaction to this. They admitted that they used two different baseballs, and their immediate reaction was, oh, COVID. Rawlings did not have enough made due to reduced manufacturing capacity, whatever. Okay, look, you and I both know this. This is the case for a lot of other things. We know that.
Right.
There's shortages here and shortages there, whatever. But here's the crazy thing. The ball that was new, different center weight, was started to be made in October of 2019, which,
Yeah, which
if not
I mean,
mistaken, predated that excuse. So,
yeah, I mean, because I mean, even let's take them at their word. Okay, so even if we take them at their word, in October of 2019, now to my knowledge, obviously COVID-19 got its name because it was
right,
discovered in
right.
2019, but they weren't like manufacturing and stuff hadn't been affected in
No,
October of
no,
2019.
no. That stuff doesn't really start to hit until March or April of 2020. So
Well, I
you have
mean, if it
several
was
months there that, yeah, it was
well, if
starting
it
to
was
hit maybe
made
like
overseas,
February-ish, but
but if it was made overseas, so even if it was made in China, though, because I don't know where Rawlings produces their baseballs. I don't.
that's a
I
good
would
question.
I would
Ah,
assume
they
China because that's where the hell everything else is made. But even then, I mean, I can't imagine that in October, with the run up, I don't think that they started like really having closers and all that stuff until January or February. Because I can't. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm way off base on this. No pun intended. But I just can't see that being, like you said, I can't see that being a valid excuse. I mean,
you ready for this? Major League Baseballs are assembled in Costa Rica.
oh, so
Um,
yeah, so there we go. So
you,
completely takes that off the table.
there's there's another interesting thing too, and again, this is kind of I don't know if this could be kind of related or not, but have you ever heard of the original baseball rubbing mud? So the
Yeah,
stuff that the pitchers use.
they get it from Delaware.
Yeah, well, actually, the magic mud is in a town in New Jersey.
What?
Yeah, 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 yep. Um,
Oh, it's from the
the
banks of the Delaware, isn't it?
right.
There we go.
So, yep. So but you and I were talking about this prior to recording. You think about things like that. So the baseball mud, and then we kind of dabbled on like spitballs and the pine tar use, which tends to be more for baseball bats. But I think there have been cases where pitchers have been known to use it.
Yeah, they'll mix the pine tar with rosin.
Right. So look, you spitball it, or maybe this whatever extra pine tar rosin mix, whatever. You're putting a foreign substance on a ball, and it makes it heavier, or it makes it whatever. It does something to where it affects, the pitch. Different weighted baseballs are going to do the same exact thing.
Right.
You're affecting the game. Look, here's the one thing I thought of immediately with this, and this is going to sound crazy because we lived through this and absolutely hated the fact that this guy did this, but I really want to use this as kind of a frame of reference. So
Yeah,
you remember the Sammy Sosa cork bat stuff, right?
absolutely.
Okay, obviously that was manipulation because he manipulated his bat to produce more home runs.
Right.
Um, and manipulation by one player, and honestly whoever helped him. I don't know that he's corking his own bat. Maybe he's that talented, I don't know, but someone helped him, I would think.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is something like this is done league wide, and you said this, like, it makes it more exciting in certain markets, more home runs, or maybe for certain games that are nationally televised, whatever they want the offense. They want Mike Trout hitting 3 home runs. And obviously I'm not saying he's not capable of that, but maybe the 3 balls he hits that day, if they're just that regular whatever baseball they're supposed to be using, maybe he hits 2 of them and one of
Right.
them misses by 5 feet and is a fly out. But you know what? We changed it just enough to where, that just enough to give him that extra 5 feet. Yeah, it's exciting, don't get me wrong. And that's that's what they want. They want people to tune into that. But the other side of that, if they're going to test out these lesser weight balls, or the ones that are supposedly, to reduce the home runs, you know, um, are they just giving those to the smaller market teams just to test out? Be like, no one cares about you anyway.
Right.
We don't televise, these random Texas Ranger games or whoever, Kansas City Royals, or these, you don't see those teams on Sunday Night Ball, or these, whoever. What's going on here?
Right.
Why do they do this? Here's the crazy thing. This whole thing, the whole conversation starts with a comment of, this was unbeknownst to players. Supposedly they didn't know any of this was going on. Now there were some conversations, from what I gather. I think there was, Pete Alonso, right? I think he was onto
Yes.
it mid-season. This was great. I saw this, or you, in the article that you sent me, and he said, basically, and you've already alluded to this, if the manipulation is to occur basically year in, year out, it depends, like you said, to the free agency class. I mean, if that's not a bombshell statement, I'm not entirely sure what is.
Right. And he's absolutely right. And God forbid, I hate, agreeing with a Met, but
Yeah, no kidding.
he's right. And it comes down to, this could open up legal things that could again hold up the negotiations of the CBA, because there might be court cases that need to be completed before we can move forward.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. And
this
and this is
there's
past the Astros stuff, the who's it, Alex Cora, the Red Sox
yeah,
manager stuff. Look, this is past all that, which was enough of a stain within of itself. And now you're talking about the league themselves potentially manipulating things.
right. I mean, and you look at it, let's go back, since 93, 94, or 94, 95. Let's look at a couple things that have happened. So we had 94, 95. Completely, it deflated a lot of fan bases. And baseball was slow to pick back up. All right. It took Cal Ripken breaking the streak. It took the McGuire and Sosa battle for, their race to break the record, race to 62. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And then finally things started picking back up. And then you get hit with the steroid scandal.
Yep.
And baseball took a major hit then, to the point where you're still seeing repercussions from it now, because you're still seeing players not getting into the Hall of Fame because they were tainted by, the specter of steroids.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you've got, people basically saying, oh, we'll throw out the record book because we don't know what's good and what's not. You've got people that still have not come back to the game based on that. And you would finally reach a point where, I mean, we would have little steroid flare-up scandals here and there. Like I remember when Al Jazeera, of all places, at one point had implicated a bunch of Major League Baseball players, including Ryan Howard. And Ryan Howard, let's leave him out of this, man. Let's dude was as legit gets. And he actually sued and won his case for slander for that. But you finally had put all that stuff in the past, and now you're going to come out, and the league itself is going to end up having been the big bad the whole time. Like, how is the league coming back from this?
Yeah. No, it's crazy. You have a major sports league here, which I've always loved. I've always loved baseball, and I think I've made that comment on here before. Statistically, baseball to me is the best. Football is a close second. And there's nothing that's remotely close to either of the two, honestly. But baseball, I've always had a passion for, because when I was young, I really dug into the numbers, and was always fascinated by things. And I never really let the steroid thing bother me. And I say this is going to sound really bad, but I kind of think about it in the terms of how the WWF or WWE was in the same time frame where it's like, who wasn't using it? You know,
Yeah.
I hate to be that way. And I think that's why I never really let it bother me too much, because it was like that was part of the culture. I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying that that's what it was. Um, now granted, do some of these people belong in or out of the hall? That remains to be seen. That's not my call. I really don't care. But yeah, you've had scandal after scandal after scandal of a professional organization at this point. Where does it go? Where does this really go? Does this get like swept under the rug? Is this, like you said, is this really a part of the collective bargaining negotiations, as it very well should be? um Man, and there's so many interesting things, like how long has this really been going on?
Right. Because
It's just
if they're doing it now, I can't think that it happened, that this is the first time that they've ever done it. We
yeah,
know we know for a fact that they've done that before. There's been the live ball era, the dead ball era, and that this happens. We know it as fans.
hmm
So how many times have they said, all right, well, this is a big series, let's throw some extra juice into it, get them some tighter wound balls, you know?
yeah. Here's the crazy thing to me. Look, I get it. If you're gonna change it season to season, because things change. I'm gonna you know put 1/10 of a pound less of air in the football this year. That's fine if I do it for every single football that's being used for the season
Right.
everywhere. Of course, unless there's some issues with elevation, whatever, I'm not getting in all that.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean, though?
But I get what you're
Everything,
saying.
yeah, everything has to be the same. So if I'm going to use 127 gram baseball, I'm going to use 127 gram baseball across the league.
Right.
Um, it- that's not that's not hard. If I want to switch that to 124 to 125 gram baseball for 2022, that's fine. The thing that really struck me as weird here, as that random pitcher remarked, was that, you know, why in the world, was this in the same season?
Right.
Like, that's the really crazy part. And you've mentioned it. The same thing Pete Alonso said, and excuse me, others have said. It's like, here we go. And I'm gonna kind of go more into the Pete Alonso, or excuse me, this is Pete Alonso. This is and I don't know if this is the same NL pitcher that worked with Meredith Wills in doing this, but this was another comment. And so, you send this was his statement. And I always like to paraphrase some of this stuff, but send a bouncier baseball, lighter baseball, whichever flies more to a prime time series, like a Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, Phillies. You and I have talked about that a couple times already. But then he suggested, let's send more dead baseballs to a Texas versus Seattle or a Detroit versus Kansas City. No one bats an eye, which we've already mentioned. But here's the other thing on that too. The league could flip that approach around and send high octane baseballs to low profile games and produce more offense, which might put more seats, basically more fans in the stands, just to continue to bring up fan engagement. And we've alluded to that already. That was said by an unknown pitcher. Look, these comments, whether it's Pete Alonso, whether it's Sean Doolittle, whether it's these unknown players, look, this is more than one player. This isn't some conspiracy theory, whatever. This is like something that legitimately happened. Um, it's just a matter of now the conspiracy part starts of why. Like,
Right.
we know what happened. They admitted to it. Their reasoning, I think right now, I guess it still stands as being COVID was the excuse. I don't know if they've added to that. But I, I don't know. I really hope this is a huge part of negotiations, and it's a shame that we will never know that. I don't think we
Right.
will to that
Well,
degree.
yeah, I
Will
mean,
we?
we won't really know. I would hope that maybe someone comes out and makes it public. Like, hey, look, this is something that we found out during, during last season in the off season, and it's something we've addressed because at this point now, it's become. I would have to imagine it's become a big enough story. I mean, you and I are talking about it, and I'm sure I haven't watched ESPN or anything, but I'd imagine ESPN is talking about it. Bleacher Report has reports on, they have articles on their page about it, and they're a pretty big outlet. So I'd have to imagine it's getting some traction, and I would really hope that that brings it enough to light that people in a position to comment on it.
Yeah.
Um,
To me, this
just
should be
for
like a huge story. I don't mean to cut you off, but this should be huge. Like, this is huge. I don't know,
right.
just as a baseball fan and a sports fan overall, this is the Tom Brady deflated ball thing times 1,000 to me. This really is.
Oh, absolutely. Because like you said before, with Sammy Sosa, with Tom Brady, that's one player trying to manipulate the outcome of games. This is the organization itself trying to manipulate the outcome of games. And if that's true, I mean, you've had for years people saying that professional sports are fixed. And I've never bought it because, even if you think back to 2001 when the Patriots won the Super Bowl after 9/11, people were like, "Oh, it's a fix, it's a fix." I'm sorry, you can't fix football. You can't.
Yeah. No.
You can actively try to do poorly, but you can't fix an entire season, everything going a certain way. It's impossible. Hockey, same thing. You can't fix an entire season. Baseball, you can't necessarily fix it. But now with this, with the different balls getting sent out, you can start wondering, okay, well, baseball, you can't completely control it, but you can do little things to try and influence. So do other sports organizations start to do little things to try and influence? What are they doing? And it starts this down the rabbit hole where who knows?
Right. Yeah. No. I've never been one to really, look. You're right. Patriots win the 0-1 Super Bowl. Must be fixed. Heck, if it was fixed, the Yankees would have won that World Series that year.
Exactly.
As simple as that. But look, the Diamondbacks won. Uh, but seriously, like,
That might have been a fix because who the hell thought the Diamondbacks would ever do anything?
that's a good point. They did have Randy Johnson though, and Kurt
Yeah.
Schilling. So
Yeah, wasn't it
anyway,
Bloody Sock? No,
yeah,
no.
no. Was that later? Yeah, it was
Yeah, I think it
later,
was
right?
later because
Yeah,
Schilling was with the Red Sox.
yeah. That's
Anyway,
right. That's right. Anyway, yeah. But no, it's really crazy to think about. You know, one, how long this has been going on. Um, we know obviously you said like live ball error, dead ball error, whatever. You know, having to bring fans back. After not having fans in the stands, yeah, you want to be more exciting. I get it, but at the same point, it's like I just don't understand the two different things, and I'm really hoping there's a great explanation. I'd love to. I'd love hearing both sides of that kind of argument because it's like, okay, why did you really do this? And don't give me the COVID stuff. I want to hear exactly why there were two different weighted things. And specifically if there were in situations where we both mentioned it, like, hey, this batch was sent, here because we can trace it. Like, why was the marquee matchup given this batch that we know weighed this much that could have produced X amount of home runs versus, poor, Texas and Kansas City getting whatever.
I mean, the
Yeah.
only thing I'll say is this. I don't know. I honestly, truly do not know how Major League Baseball distributes their baseballs. I would assume that it's much like, you know, any other organization. You get a box of baseballs, they're all from the same batch, and that's how it works. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe when they work the balls up in the mud, they're all it's just random, and each team gets a random pack of balls from MLB, and they don't really know, like, oh, this is from this batch, this is from this batch. maybe that's just me with my head in the sand and pretending that they're not trying to adjust things. Maybe that's the way it's done. But if I had to imagine, I would say they're probably getting it, like I said, with, it's this lot number of balls, this batch, and so on and so forth, and able to track everything because it's Major League.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's no, I'd like to think the same thing. Hey, it all goes into one pot, and this, for example, and then it's all evenly distributed. Something tells me that that's not necessarily the case, because you're right. I mean, they at this point, an organization like that, you would assume, as you said, that they do track all that stuff. Now, I don't know if that's really the case. I would really like to know, kind of even a small sample of, hey, where did this size, the 127 gram balls, go comparative to the other 124 to 125s?
Right.
Just out of curiosity, hey, for maybe a week's worth of games, if they knew that, or if that information was available. Because I think that would be enough of information to tell you, like, hey, what's really happening here? Yeah, whether there's something really nefarious going on, that remains to be seen. Um, I I just would like you said, I would like to believe that everything just kind of like, yeah, it's all random, whatever. You know, I think it would be really odd that certain games would be like, oh yeah, we've had this batch played, played a whole game with these balls, and they were two different baseballs. Like, because I don't know, well, they go through like what, I don't know how many a game,
Right.
but yeah, we use balls that were this weight, and then we use balls that were this weight.
Yeah, I would feel like pitchers would notice the difference.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's the other thing. I thought about that too. It's like, I mean, I know that average human being couldn't, but if that's all you do as your job, you would think that you might be able to tell some sort of difference there.
Right. I mean, and I'm not saying they weren't able to tell, but what I mean is more or less like if they're using two different weight baseballs in the same game, I feel like they would know. I mean, and honestly, let's look at it this way too. So you and I both know this, when Major League Baseball, when there's a major um like milestone that's going to be hit. So like when Bonds was chasing the home run record, Major League Baseball put little holograms on the baseballs
Yeah, yep,
so
yep,
that
I
they
remember
would
that.
know, they could authenticate, oh, this ball was from this game. So we know that they track that stuff. So
Yeah,
that shoots holes in our theory of, oh, it just all they all go in the same hopper. And then I, I mean, unless they only shipped, because obviously not every team got those baseballs. It was only they were only for the games where the Giants were playing. But like, I don't know, man. I feel I can't go with them not knowing exactly what they were doing.
yeah. It's a very interesting tracking and logistics type of question. I feel like that could be a deep dive research paper for somebody.
Right.
So if you happen to stumble upon this and you're working on your thesis and you're not us,
If you're smarter than us,
yes,
maybe you can figure this out.
yeah. I mean, it sounds really dumb, but man, I just think it's really tracking where it all went. Um, you know, because here's the thing: now that it's out there, you can forget about tracking anything 2022 and beyond, because they're going to make sure it's right, whatever it is, or uh, on paper.
Right.
You know, that's the key. It's very very easy to change it now that they know the jig is up, basically.
Exactly.
And I think it goes back to like, so how long was this going on? And yeah, this is just really super cool, and maybe that's something that Dr. Meredith Wills can figure out.
I hope so. And kudos to her for bringing this bringing this to the forefront, bringing it out, and kind of blowing the lid off it. Fantastic job on her part, and doing
Yeah.
the research and making sure that people know.
Yeah, this is one of those things again, small story, I think, in the overall grand scale of the world, obviously. But man, like, for a baseball fan, and for just, really anything in major professional American sports, this is, I think you're right. This is just as bad as the steroid scandal in the sense of, this is an organizational thing. I
Right.
mean, and it's an organizational thing from the people that run it, not the
Right. The
players.
ones that are the ones that are supposed to be setting the rules and ensuring that they're followed are the ones that are basically trying to manipulate the outcome of games.
Yeah, it's
And
really
and it
crazy.
goes beyond games though, because honestly, this is manipulation of the season. This is manipulation of entire markets. You don't want to. So, all right, let's go. And I'm going really, really, really extreme here. Like obviously, this is I'm embellishing quite a bit. But all right, so the Tampa Bay Rays, man, the Tampa Bay Rays cannot draw in their stadium, but the Tampa Bay Rays are really good. So
Yeah,
maybe is MLB trying to say, hey, you know what, this is a really marketable team if you put them somewhere where it's not a transient city. So let's see if maybe we can generate interest in somebody buying them. Or the flip side, you get a team that's say a team that's in a city that's struggling and they're in the same situation where they can't sell out the stadium, they can't sell tickets, and then the ownership is like, well, you know what, let's move them, and if we make them like the major league theory. Okay, so what did she do? The owner tried to she brought in cast off some people who supposedly couldn't play and who would be terrible, thinking, all right, well, once Major League Baseball sees how pathetic our turnout is, they'll okay me moving. So there's so many different things that can be manipulated with this. It's incredible, and I
yeah,
can't believe that they actually thought they could get away with it. And I'm thankful to Dr. Wells for finding this out and bringing it to everybody's attention.
yeah. It's crazy. And the Rays are a great point in that too, because that's one team that's always threatened to move. Um, because you're right, they don't draw. They were the only American League team this year that won 100 games. The only one. They don't draw. They don't have the resources that a LA Dodgers or a Yankees or a team like that does. They just don't. Um, and you know, was it manipulation to move them or to attempt to move a team? That who knows? Or it's mind-boggling, as you said, that they thought they could get away with it, um, and they apparently did. The one thing I find interesting was that this was, from what I gathered, reading the Sean Doolittle conversations and the Pete Alonso, and there were other players that weren't mentioned. It seems like it was a hot topic in the locker room for certain players. Like they knew something was going on,
Right.
but it was a more of a conversational thing. Like, hey, this is weird. Like some of these baseballs are, a little more prevalent to be home runs, and some of these aren't. And then, it takes obviously an astrophysicist to
Right.
to figure it out. But like, it sounds like some of these players were on it, but just, didn't have the data or the wherewithal to support their, it, I don't know, like the gut instinct. Like they know
Right.
something's up, and I think Pete Alonso apparently has been onto it for a while.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
So, but yeah, it's really interesting, man. This was a good one. I'd really like to kind of revisit this once the negotiations are kind of settled, just to see, what comes out, and what is, kind of transpires in between now and then, because I'd love for this to like really gain some traction. This may sound like really simple, but man, this is a big story.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's something so simple can affect things so, on such a large scale, to the point where we're talking about it affecting contract negotiations between the Major League Baseball Players Association and Major League Baseball.
Oh
And
yeah,
that to me is insane that's something we're talking about in almost 2022. But hey, here we are.
yeah, we're I'm gonna really it's the really small things. It's the needle in the haystack type thing. You're talking about 3 grams difference in a $1 billion+ industry that could affect it by you know who knows how much
Right. And if they're
uh,
if they're manipulating that kind of stuff, something like that, what else are they manipulating?
exactly that and I think that's a great point, and I think that's a great point to kind of we'll wrap this up with. Look, they I'm not saying that, oh, we caught you red-handed and we caught you with your pants down type thing. No, that's not what we're saying. This was found out, but kind of going back to the Sammy Sosa thing. Yeah, he had a cork bat. He got caught because it broke. Um, were you guys like corking bats of players that we didn't really care about just so they could pop a few home runs to make it fun? I,
Right.
because if you're willing to with baseballs, I don't know what you're willing to do with the bats. I don't know what you're willing to do with anything else. Uh, were you feeding the umpires? Like sometimes, like, look, I don't know how many games we've watched over the years. I know you've seen it too, where the umpire's just calling a really bad game, and they're like, oh, the announcers are like, oh, he just must be having an off day, or he can't see today, or just some really stupid comment. And it's like,
Right.
that was obviously a strike, or obviously a ball. Who knows? I'm like, look, I'm not trying to say that MLB is, here's an extra $5,000 if you throw it this team's way, but good Lord.
Right.
I think we could start making some of those assumptions now.
Yeah. It throws the entire integrity of the game into question at this point, because there's, you know, if you're willing to, it kind of, integrity is doing the right thing when no one's looking.
Right.
And obviously, Major League Baseball has not been doing the right thing when no one's looking. And now they are looking. So let's see what happens from here.
Yeah, we're looking. We're on it.
We
You
are
know.
on it. Hey, the Noise Brigade is on your ass, Major League Baseball. So you better straighten up and fly right.
Yeah, and I will say that we've talked highly of Pete Alonso, but we don't like the Mets
No,
um, ever.
F the Mets.
Yeah, and Sean Doolittle once played for the Nationals. I don't like him either.
No.
Well, I like that he brought this up,
Yes.
but he's still a National.
Yeah, we still
Um,
have to. I mean, look, kudos to Pete Alonso, kudos to Sean Doolittle, but also you both suck.
yeah,
Because
until you become Phillies, and then you're cool.
yeah, yeah, once you're Phillies, you're cool. Kind of like
Yeah,
Bryce Harper.
exactly.
Bryce Harper, I used to throw out Bryce Harper in Major League Baseball, the show. And then he became a Philly. And now if anybody throws at him, I'm gonna hit him.
Exactly. I like. I
Like car.
I'd send him a basket of fruit or something. I don't know. Dude, this is great. This is such a interesting one for me, mainly because I could really dig in on this for a long time, and I probably will. This is one of those things that I swear, if there's a book written on it, I would read, just so I could learn, really more about what's going on, in the sense of some of the advanced, analytical stuff behind it. With the thing I really found interesting, just looking at the little micro subset thing that we did with Joey Votto, talking about the exit velocities and the launch angles and all that. I would love to see that like really drilled down, for if they knew like, hey, this was this batch of baseballs, how much this weighed, and then what happened from there, with home runs or hits or whatever. Just to kind of really dig into that, just to you know
Oh, absolutely.
see
That'd be
what it was.
outstanding.
Yeah, I don't know that anything ever that comes to light, obviously, but gosh, if it did, man, because I think we could really make some inferences there about, oh, here we go.
Right, right. No, absolutely. I would be thrilled to see something like that.
So, but I don't know, man. The funny thing is, here we are with it. We're luckily, as I mentioned before, we're at a point where right now the lockout and the timing of the year really doesn't matter. If I were betting anything, I'm sure this stuff wraps itself up after the new year, and we're good to go. I really can't see this dragging out. Too much money at stake, but this thing has to be addressed, and I'm really curious how it fleshes out.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
well, man, you got anything else to wrap us up with?
No, until next time, make sure you're checking us out at doublewidecoffin.com. Make sure you check us out on Twitter, and make sure you look us up on the Facebook, the face pages. Looking to try and get a MySpace page up and running, but it hasn't been working.
Oh man, it doesn't.
Yeah, I know, man. And I mean, I tried to make an AOL Instant Messenger account for us, but that wasn't working either. So
I'm gonna work on a GeoCities tonight.
yes, dude. Yes, do a GeoCity site for us,
Yeah,
and then we'll do what I do in all reality. What I'd like to do is, in all seriousness, I'd like to get us on YouTube, and but we might have to actually show our stupid faces if we do that. So
yeah, no, we gotta do that, and if we'll do a YouTube at some point. We'll definitely get there. I do have to redo where I sit, because a lot of these people that do the YouTube podcasts are cool because they have these like awesome setups with desks and these fancy computers and monitors and microphones and all these stickers of their supporters and things that they like. My background is a beige wall.
yeah, I mean,
And
mine is Lily's cage and my bed.
yeah,
So
so yeah, we'll have to find somewhere. Actually,
put the green screen it.
I could, yeah, that's it. Yeah, we'll pretend we're somewhere cool. There you go.
Yeah.
Um, no, this is a good one. Yeah, we'll have to do the YouTube thing at some point. I think that'll be fun. Maybe we'll get more traction that way. Just because we're
Yeah.
both so beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. You are. I'm kind of a hideous chud.
No. We're both
We both
we're
could have
both
been on the
beautiful,
cover of
Bob.
Monster.
Oh man, now we'll do the YouTube thing at some point. We'll get on with that, and yeah, we'll definitely be throwing another episode or two before our super show. I like to call it that because we might have more than one guest.
Yeah. Yeah, hey man, let's keep doing it. Let's keep calling it the Super Show and hope that we get more than one guest. Another one we have in the pipeline is we're gonna do hopefully with Mark. We're looking at doing and this one's gonna turn everybody off right now, but we're looking at doing a wrestling fantasy draft where Mark, Tom, and I each take over a brand, so to speak, and draft wrestlers from all over wrestling. So indies, every promotion that's out there that we can think of. Tom found a good website for us to use. So we'll be doing that. Hopefully we'll get Richie back on here. Heck, maybe even Richie will want to join in on that one.
Yeah, we got to do. I'd love to chat more games and really anything. Those are fun episodes, and we're gonna hopefully try to get Richie back on for our super show for sure, because fun time there. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to doing that one with you and Mark. I'm gonna really have to do my homework on that, because man, I've stepped away a little bit from the wrestling world, and I need to get back in. So
well, I mean, you could try to draft like 15 Al Snows.
I was thinking about trying to just be like, you know what, I want Terry Funk and then a bunch of people that are dead, and
Andre the Giant Skeleton.
Yeah, I mean, because you think about it, fantasy draft, you'd always pick people that aren't around. But no, we're gonna do that based on who's currently around to actually physically wrestle.
No teams full of kickers.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that. But yeah, that'll be fun, and and I think too, kind of as an aside, or maybe a secondary to that, is we should probably like go around and after we do that, like maybe like role play it for a little bit just to see like, hey, who would actually win after we drafted? Like who would come out on top? Who would win the Monday Night War?
That's a good idea. I think that makes a lot of
Like a fantasy football team. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like I just think that would be fun to really look at and say, you know what? Like, hey, let's draft, let's let it go for a couple months and kind of see what happens like realistically. Or maybe like I know it's kind of hard with wrestling, but at least just see on paper like who made the AEW moves.
Right. No, exactly. Who was AEW out of this?
Exactly. Man, now I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah, we'll definitely try to for a super show. We'll get Richie. I'll have to get Danielle back on. We'll talk to Brock. You got to get we'll have to get Crypto and the whole Johnny Bench stuff going back, right?
Yeah. We got to get AJ on.
You get AJ back on. And yeah, you'll have to get Kara. So
yeah. All right,
all right, man.
Next time, we have been the Noise Brigade. Make sure you're checking us out everywhere on social media, and we will see you next time.
Later on.